Let me make this thing stop clicking for a moment too. What's up, Nikki?
Oh, there she is. All right. We were talking about you, and then your ears must have been ringing. And then,
there I am.
And all of a sudden we started getting.
Like, where's your picture?
I'm ready for bed. So
we at least need a 5-minute update on the White House. I saw the pictures, but what was that like?
So I went by myself. Sorry, I'm really tired. I have my Invisalign in. I went by myself, so it was really weird, but it was so much fun and so crazy because I was so close to the president. Like, I was probably like 20 feet away. Like, he was right there. It was really cool. So,
Amazing.
Yeah.
Did you meet? I know like Jessica Mertz from Cleary Center was there. Did you meet anybody else for? With obviously similar goals and stuff. And why don't you tell everybody why you were there? Because we were trying to explain what the conference was.
Yeah, I was there for the VAWA 30th anniversary. I was honored to be invited. I wished that get some more light in here. I wish that all of us were invited.
I don't know if they know what that was.
The Violence Against Women Act. 30 years ago was started. So actually, President Biden was the one that, he was a senator at the time that signed it into action, and it's been going ever since. So yeah, it was an honor to be there. I wish they would have let me speak, so I have a lot to say.
There was a lot of people there. I saw there had to be, a few hundred people on the lawn?
I think there was like 500. I don't know.
By the way, an honor to be just invited to that. I mean, the fact they're recognizing the work you've done, I mean, that's a cool thing even to be there.
And by the way, if you guys don't follow both of them, you should know who both of them are, but definitely give Nikki a follow. We're trying to grow her platform because she does a lot of great things. And but Tara's not here tonight, right? So
no, I think she's sleeping already. We're in Portland right now.
Okay.
Are you guys speaking or anything? Or what are you doing? Are you going to train cops there?
Yeah, no, we are going to speak on a panel tomorrow morning with Black and Missing. We're at the National Center for Victims of Crime conference.
So everybody could put all this together. So Justin obviously was friends with Nikki, worked a lot and helped the Petito family out. And Justin thought Nikki and I would hit it off. So he connected us. And we had a wonderful Zoom, and we've become friends now. And I love everything she's doing because she's taken a totally different approach than other people, which I love because she's really focusing heavily. I mean, she's doing a lot of things, but she understands the value of helping law enforcement out and helping train them so they can recognize domestic violence situations.
Yeah, for those of y'all who don't know. If you weren't on TikTok at the time or didn't follow their case, I mean, and I've said this to you too, like, first off, when you saw Nikki and Joe and Tara and Jim on TV, that is how they are in real life. Like y'all don't like, that's just who you guys are, right?
I guess so.
You know what I'm saying? Though some people put on a facade, but you guys don't. But they took a horrible tragedy and have turned it into something to help so many other people. And y'all changed laws in at this point, 4 states. And now Joe's looking at like Australia and the UK. They're asking for help from you guys. Plus you were invited to this. So y'all are doing some pretty amazing things in the wake of a horrific tragedy, to make sure what happened to Gabby doesn't happen to others. And I think it's incredible.
Thank you. We're trying.
We're gonna work with Nikki and her charity. We're gonna help her do some educational videos, and when we get that ready, we need everybody's help. That's where you need to come in with your 1 million followers to help us push those.
There's a lot of love for y'all's family on this app. That, so I don't think that would be a problem.
Yeah, we appreciate everybody. It's been so wonderful, and I don't know. I guess we're just ourselves, and we're just doing our best, and that's what it is. So I'm excited. I've been traveling a lot, and I know somebody made a comment the other day. They're like, "Hey, you travel a lot," and I'm like, "We did take some time out to go on a hike when we were in Laramie, Wyoming, and we need to do that sometimes. We need to take a little step away from all the serious stuff, and it was beautiful. And Gabby would have loved it. I said while we were hiking, I'm like, haha, Gabby, we found a place you didn't go to. So, it was really cool. It was called Turtle Rock. And it's nice.
Where are you going after
After Portland, after a few days, I'll be back in home for a few days, and then I'm going to DC for the Nick Mick 40th anniversary.
We waited. I'll be back in DC between the 23rd and 25th. You're not going to be there then, are you?
26th and 27th. Yeah.
I'm missing you by a day. I missed you by a day last week. That's crazy. I was there on September 11th, and then I think you came in on the 12th, right?
Yep, you were right. Yep. You just have to come to Tampa.
Well, maybe I'll stay an extra day. Who knows? We're doing some interviews. We have like Macbeth and a few people, but maybe we'll hang out. But yeah. You know, sorry to wake you up. You shouldn't be in bed anyway at 9:30.
I know. I'm used to the East Coast time, and now it's only 9:30 here, and I'm like, I'm so tired.
You didn't? She messaged us, Dan.
I know. I did.
Like, we didn't mean to wake you up. I'm like, she messaged us.
No, because I saw you guys, and I was like, those are my two favorite TikTok guys.
We actually were talking about you. That's the funny thing.
Were you?
Yeah, we actually were.
Good stuff.
No, it's terrible, actually.
Yeah, he said that you were in Washington. And then, like, all of a sudden,
Washington, Portland.
Got text messages from me. So I thought maybe someone said, or you saw that we were talking about you.
No, yeah.
Wow.
No. I just popped on quick, and he happened to be live again. So I said, oh, my God. And I saw Dan. I was like, no way, it's Dan. And I couldn't get on because I don't subscribe.
Well, I can moderate you, so moderators can come in regardless. So let me do that.
Oh, you have VIP privileges, Nikki, with Justin. Damn, I'm a subscriber. I pay my.
Yeah, Dan's got to pay because apparently Dan's worth $450 million.
Yeah. See, you can
according
afford
to the
it,
internet. The internet says Dan's worth $450 million.
Yeah.
Dana, we do a subscribe only every Tuesday night.
Was that Justin?
Somebody said I really hate when people do sub lives. I said I have almost 500 subscribers, so we do a sub live every Tuesday night.
Yeah.
So.
Very nice.
That's a benefit for them.
But now you have a VIP pass, Nikki, so you can come with me.
How lucky am I?
I don't know about that. You just can come into the live now whenever you want.
Yeah. Maybe I'll get some subscribers.
Yeah, you really do. We do really need to work on getting you guys built up a little bit more. Gabby Petito Foundation's page, has a pretty.
What's your website again? Why don't you tell everybody your website?
GabbyPetitoFoundation.org. And I know, Dan, you're going to help me with that too, because it's not very good. I do that all myself. We do everything on our own. We don't have a team. We have a couple volunteers who are so great, and they help us with some things, but it's really just the four of us.
By the way, guys, when I had my conversation with Nikki, she was giving me some pretty scary stats. Like, I didn't realize how many women are victim of domestic violence. And
it's high. It's very high.
Ridiculously high, like much higher than I thought.
Dan's going to Dan thinks I'm already obsessed, so it's fine, whatever he thinks. But I know that it's hard, but if you want to get some stuff, maybe you ought to start on your account weighing in on some of this Diddy stuff coming in, because that's the hot topic right now. Those lives that I've been doing during the day have between 13 and 2,200 people in them.
Wow.
I mean, and that, like, I would love, Nikki, we should do a live with you and have you watch the video from the hotel, the one video of the
I think she's seen it.
But I would love to get your thoughts on that, like, because.
Oh, with Diddy? Yeah.
A lot of people are like, how could she go back to him? And then, because then there's video of her on a red carpet with him days later where she's acting totally fine. And a lot of people don't understand. And how could they be in such a horrible situation and then not leave or act totally normal? And like, maybe you can help shed light on.
Well, your brain literally gets rewired when you're in an abusive relationship, and there's a lot of reasons why women don't leave. And it typically takes about 7 times for a woman to get the courage to leave. So if people would understand more about the dynamic of what happens to your brain in a power control relationship, then they would be a little more empathetic towards victims and stop blaming them. So,
I mean, do you think with Diddy, I mean, now what's coming out about him, it's pretty violent, crazy shit. Like almost like, like mafia boss. Like,
Well, yeah, that's why he's got a RICO charge.
yeah, I mean, but what's crazy is you hear these horrifically violent and terrifying things about him, but then the people around him were just acting normal.
Yeah.
Which
Well, yeah, when somebody has that much money too, they have a lot of power, and they use that power, and they control everybody around them. So it's scary.
You look back, you see now that all this stuff has come out, right? Were the warning signs there? Like people have to, because there was that one girl from Danny Kane, I forget her name, Aubrey O'Day. She came out years ago and tried to be a whistleblower, and then they proceeded to destroy her career and completely shit on her and discredit her. And now like she posted yesterday, she feels vindicated because she said it all along, but they attacked her. But I wonder how many people now that weren't aware of what was going on now are looking back like, oh my God, of course. Now I see it, because now we know everything that was going on. But this dude is like, it's crazy.
Yeah. He also had an entire team of people. He had a lot of money, has a lot of money. He rewarded loyalty. He had whole teams that knew what was going on, and they were well compensated. They paid people off. They bribed people. And, going back to with the Cassie situation, there's one woman who filed a lawsuit against him for, SA, and said basically happened when she was 16 years old. And then after being abused by him, he came to her house the next day and abused her. This is a guy who would threaten you, use coercion, use money, use his power, threaten careers, brandish guns at you to try to keep you under control. Like you said, mafia is a great way to describe what he was doing, because he was the boss and they had a lot of people. He had a lot of people around him protecting him and very loyal to him.
Nikki, with Hazen, we always said that there was different levels of Hazen. It's, hey, go wash my car, get me a pack of cigarettes. And then there's the crazy shit with them waterboarding people and doing really violent acts. And, over time, I realized, I used to act at the beginning of my research, or when I started working this thing, I thought, they're going to get the pack of cigarettes is harmless, but they say it's all the same regardless. You look at what Diddy did. Now we have it on camera, exactly how violent he was. Are there different levels of domestic violence, or, is it just as bad if someone just smacks his wife compared to that was a violent beatdown in the hallway. Is that seen as differently in people in the domestic violence world, or is it all kind of equal, or are there different levels of people that do this?
Good question.
I think most of us think that domestic violence is physical. We don't look at that other stuff, coercive control, power over money, just all domestic violence is power and control, and it may not look physical. They may not be ever physical. But they did a study in the UK recently, and they found out that some homicides, domestic violence homicides, were actually all relationships that had coercive control but no physical violence, and they still ended up killing their intimate partners. So there's so many levels, and there's so many different ways that it can look different to everybody, but it's all the same thing. In general, it's power and control, whether it's physical or it's not physical. It's the same reason, and it's mostly gender based. Yes, men get abused, but it really is mostly women, because men have
significantly more women than men.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you believe victims until you have a reason not to believe victims. There's a lot of people that will come on and be like, well, what did she do? What did she do? And look, one of the most famous, probably the most famous case of a man being abused was Johnny Depp, right? And you believed Amber Heard till you heard her talk, and then you're like, oh, this woman is totally full of shit. But yeah, for the most part, people will come in.
To be fair, though, they did find it on both sides.
They did find it a little bit on both sides, but a lot of his was reactive, I would say, based on what I saw. But yeah,
really sensitive subjects. Most people are actually there, but it's
yeah.
Yeah, that was an unfortunate situation. I think it was a toxic environment.
Very toxic.
Yeah.
Yeah, they clearly should not have been together.
Yeah.
That. I mean, that was,
Well, through a mutual friend, I've had Johnny described as a sloth who moves too slowly to do anything violent.
Somebody asked, is Diddy a worse person than Kanye?
That's my son. So that's my 12-year-old son, guys.
He's on there asking these questions.
Oh, he's requested to come up as a guest.
No, he is upset because I refuse to work. Kanye West has tried to get me to direct him recently, and I won't do it. And I said he crossed the line. I'm trying to explain to him that when people say certain things that are hurtful, that there's just no going back. Some people could be, he asked me the other day, like even Chris Brown, I knew Chris Brown, but then once when he did the Rihanna, there's just no coming back from that. I don't care. I don't care.
Your son wants to come up. Do you want me to let him up?
No. Dylan, no.
Okay, I'll say X.
Yeah, so no, but it's like, Hollywood, the entertainment industry is very weird that, how some people like it's shocking to me. Like, I wonder if Diddy worked at Deloitte or at a big law firm, could he have pulled off what he did for as many years? There's all these enablers and people around him that obviously supported these activities and turned a blind eye to it. They look at Harvey Weinstein. It's mind blowing everything that came out about him, I mean, everybody he always had a reputation of being like a womanizer and stuff, but no one ever really knew the extent of what he was doing, right? But there were obviously people that turned a blind eye and just let it happen.
Bill Cosby.
Yeah. I mean,
that was heartbreaking.
I don't know if this can happen in other, segments, but it baffles me with people like Chris Brown and people like, Kanye and people when they do really crazy shit. Well, obviously they're different. Kanye said some racist stuff, but I also think Kanye has some mental health issues. Chris Brown, that was just flat out violent. I don't know how he was ever allowed back in the business and how people just pretended like that never happened. It's mind-boggling to me. He's back, working with Justin Bieber and like all these big people and putting records out. And it's like, wait, did people forget what happened 10 years ago? I mean, he how can he be forgiven for that? I mean, that's his issues. And he bludgeoned her. And, and he has a history of like lashing out at people. He has definite, anger issues. And so I don't know how people could be forgiven when they cross that line like that. That's pretty nuts. And so, the Diddy thing is going to get really bad, I think. And I think a lot more people probably fall. There's no way he was able to pull that off at that level without a ton of people enabling that behavior.
Oh, yeah. I think there's going to be a lot of lessons.
The RICO charge are clearly going for criminal organization. So I bet you there's going to be a ton of more indictments flying.
They're calling it the Combs Enterprise.
Oh.
Here we go.
That's what they're calling it. Hold on. We all talk. I'll get it pulled up. I got it right here.
Yeah, I think we're going to find out a lot more information.
That bums me out because it gives the entertainment industry a bad name. Entertainment people.
I think, you know what though, Dan? I don't know because people have known that he's a piece of shit for years.
No, but most people, like, especially in election years, people look down on the entertainment industry and God forbid anybody in the entertainment industry even speaks their mind about anything political. People, they really lose their minds about it. If people are losing their minds right now about Taylor Swift. Is she not allowed to have it? Why can't she have an opinion? And by the way, can you blame her for coming out and endorsing Kamala? Trump's been attacking her and saying crazy shit, but she should have every right in the world to say who she wants to vote for.
Dylan said he feels bad for Diddy's kids, by the way, just letting you know.
Well, I mean, I feel bad for at least the young ones because we know they probably don't really know. It's going to be interesting to see if his oldest sons have anything to do with this because they're like this. And you see, like, I just would find it hard to believe that anybody really close to him was not aware of what's going on.
Here, I'll read this. So the first line of this indictment, count one, it says for decades, they have all of his aliases here. So for decades, Sean Combs, a.k.a. Puff Daddy, a.k.a. P. Diddy, a.k.a. Diddy, a.k.a. PD, a.k.a. Love, because he changed his name to Love for a minute at one point.
I didn't realize it was that many.
Yeah, he's got a lot. They actually forgot Puff. They forgot Puffy.
Puffy.
We got Puffy.
Gabby,
He was just
Puffy,
Puffy for a
Puffy.
minute. Yeah, but anyways, he said the defendant abused, threatened. This is the first line, but for decades, Sean Combs, the defendant, abused, threatened, and coerced women and others around him to fulfill his sexual desires, protect his reputation, and conceal his conduct. To do so, Combs relied on the employees, resources, and influence of the multifaceted business empire that he led and controlled, creating a criminal enterprise whose members and associates engaged in and attempted to engage in, among other crimes, sex trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and obstruction of justice. That is the first line of this indictment.
Yeah.
That's heavy. And then when it goes into it, it says that he operated his business headquartered at various times in Manhattan and Los Angeles under a variety of United States-based corporate entities, including Bad Boy Entertainment, Combs Enterprises, and Combs Global, collectively Combs Business. Corporate entities in the Combs business included, among other things, record labels, recording studio, apparel line, alcoholic spirits business, marketing agency, and a television network and media company. It says that talks about his abuse being verbal, pervasive pattern of abuse towards others. It was verbal, emotional, physical, and sexual. Talking about how he manipulated women. But then when it goes down to racketeering, let me scroll down here. Oh, here it is, the Empire. Where is it? I lost it. The Combs Enterprise. From at least in or about 2008 through the date of the filing of this, the defendant and others known and unknown were members and associates of a criminal organization, the Combs Enterprise, or the Enterprise. Members and associates of the Combs Enterprise engaged in, attempted to engage in, among other acts, everything that we just said. Sex trafficking, forced labor, interstate transportation for purposes of prostitution, coercion, and enticement to engage in prostitution, narcotics offenses, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and obstruction of justice. It says that the Combs Enterprise, including its leadership, its members, and its associates, constituted an enterprise as defined by Title 18 U.S. Code 1961-4. That is a group of individuals associated, in fact, although not a legal entity. It says that he consisted of him, including but not limited, and all the. So basically, the point of this is that they are saying that this was. Basically, it was a front to conduct illegal activities. That's where the racketeering charges come
What took them so
One
long?
of those charges sticks, he's cooked.
Yeah, and I think they're going to get him to stick, and I think there's going to be more charges. Why did it take him so long is a great question. I don't know.
Well, but the Southern District is historically, they don't file charges, so that they build such strong cases that that's why
they build airtight.
I think it's 99.99% conviction rate. So it's just they sometimes they don't even file things until like a week before statute of limitations is up. They wait until they have something so over the top it's cooked. So, Gabby, Nikki, someone said in here, people have been making comments about Jennifer Lopez. He was with Jennifer for a while. Is it possible for someone to be this much of a monster? Let's say what they're saying about him is true, and then be in a relationship and not abuse someone. Jennifer had to go through this shit, right? I mean, you can't have a Jekyll and Mr. Hyde thing. If you have,
how do you look at Rex Heuermann?
I mean, knowing what you know about domestic violence, or abusers, if they're this type of person, they're probably doing it to everybody around him. There's probably no way in hell he didn't abuse J-Lo. I mean, it would be a real coincidence.
Nobody's immune to domestic violence. You can be controlled no matter how strong you are, no matter how powerful you are. You can be still manipulated by someone more powerful than you. So
because
it's possible.
She probably stood up for him before. She said that he never hit her or anything, and I just know
He may not have. He may not have.
Really? Because someone could be that violent. Someone could be that violent and not do it to certain people.
Look at Rex Heuermann, the Long Island serial killer. He would go kill people in his spare time and come home and live a normal family life.
Wow.
I wouldn't call it normal, but yeah, basically.
Lived a family life.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
He was an architect by day and a serial killer by night.
Yeah.
Worst type of person.
Wow, learn
Scary
something.
world.
So yeah, that's mind-boggling to me. Because you were hearing all this stuff, and we're hearing how many years it's been going on. So and J-Lo was so close to him for so many years. You think, why would she stay with him, or why would she be with him if he's really doing this shit? But I mean, I guess there's a chance she maybe didn't know, or he didn't do it to her.
Well, I mean, we obviously don't know that answer to that question. Only she does. So it's it's possible that he was abusive to her, and it's possible that maybe he wasn't with her. So I don't know. But most likely, based on his history, there probably was abuse there. Yeah.
Wow. He's pretty, especially in his younger days. You know, even going back to college, people have come out and talked about how violent he is and how violent he's been. I mean, it's really been a long time, and I think as the money and the power and the influence grew, you know, so did it. And let's be real. I mean, you know, whatever with this, Dan, but you know, he's even started the entire like East Coast West Coast hip hop rivalry thing that ultimately led to both and Biggie and others being killed. He started that because
somebody just commented that you guys have something to do with Tupac and Biggie. We were talking about this earlier, Justin.
Yeah. Well, Dan said that the sun is now reliable.
By the way, now we're going down a rabbit hole because Justin is completely obsessed with the Biggie and Tupac stuff.
I know.
But I admit
I got the shirt on.
That Diddy being around this shit was just way too much of a coincidence for him not to have something to do with it. You know, and he financially gained out of it. I mean, there was a lot of shit. I mean, it's been rumored for years, but you know, there's a lot of coincidence there if he had nothing to do with it. You know, but you know, all this other stuff. I mean, who knows? You know, look, anybody in the rap business either knows someone or has something to do with some sort of gang stuff, or I mean, because that's just the way that whole world works.
Especially back then.
Yeah. Well, even now.
Now you have some people removed from it.
Be part of the clique. Look, I mean, I love him. I mean, he won a Pulitzer. I mean, Kendrick Lamar is brilliant, and they're all affiliated with some people, whether they're actual gang members or not. They're affiliated with them. They're blessed by them. You know, it's just that world. You know, and so it's just the way it operates. I don't know where this abuser stuff came in. Like this is all new. Like I think Diddy's taking this to a level that no one's ever seen before. I mean, Harvey Weinstein was a creep, and he was sexually, you know, he was essaying and doing other things to women. I don't think have there been any accusations of abusing people? I think it's just been.
I think coercion, but I don't think any like assaulting.
Yeah, I think with the Diddy stuff is stuff we're seeing on a whole nother level right now.
Diddy stuff is very violent.
This is nutso. This is like the violence. Even R. Kelly didn't have the violence, right? This weird stuff.
No, this is extreme violence. I mean, really bad. Like, I mean, you saw a taste of it with that Cassie video. I can't even imagine what else is out there.
Man, I'm like. Once I saw that video, I'm like, he's never coming back from that. Nor should.
That's probably just a tiny piece of the puzzle.
I would agree. It's got to be worse.
He acted in that hallway. And the crazy thing is, I don't know if you guys saw the other video. I forget what they're doing in town. And then, like, the next night or something, they were on a red carpet. And, like, they're smiling. She looks fine. I'm thinking, like, no one, after seeing that video, and then it's like, wow. Because you would not think, and maybe you wouldn't, maybe you may, Nikki, you might be able to recognize little things that maybe we don't. But they look like a picture perfect couple to me. You know?
Well, I think that's how it often works. They look good in public. They're scared. Like, you know, you saw the thing is, it wasn't just a threat because Cassie knew what he could do to her. Because she experienced it. So what are you going to do? You can't really fight him. She feels like he controls, you know, she was an R&B singer. So he feels that she controls the career. He holds the purse strings. Oftentimes, he covered their houses. He apparently, according to this indictment, one of the things he did was also he would go and get their medical records and like was controlling their medical records or stuff like that. I mean, he was so involved in these women and keeping them, you know, under basically, you know, his thumb. Like it's to an amount like. I've talked about a lot of cases. I've never seen anything like what we're seeing in this ever.
I doubt it was just women. He was probably controlling everybody in his life.
He's been charged for SAF men too. He's like he just actually lost $100 million judgment the other day because he didn't show up in court.
You didn't, but they got that judgment set aside. I think
they're gonna appeal that. He's but
yeah.
There's some weird shit going on here. So I mean, it's just but if someone at that level could do it, you know, then obviously it could be done in small places too. I mean, this is because when you're that high profile, I don't know how you could do that stuff without. How did he do it for all these years without
Paying people off, or they're scared of him.
Well,
Yeah.
but that's the most fascinating thing. When people get accused of things, they look like nice people sometimes, and then there's a total side to them, and you're like, wait, and people don't want to believe it. I mean, Nikki, not to bring up like a sore subject, but videos that were released with Gabby and Brian, like they seem very happy. Like there's a lot of videos where he doesn't look. He looks like this super nice guy. And it's like that's why it's so important to be able to show people. When in today's world, we have the luxury of having so much video where you can actually show people an example, because it's maybe not what it always isn't what it looks like on the surface.
Yeah.
I think that's what people talking about your case and your daughter's story was they looked so happy, and it was such a shock, right? And when you look back on it now, were there warning signs that maybe because you're more educated now that you maybe would catch on to now, or
Yeah. We talk about a lot. If you go back, Brian did a very typical thing that most abusers do, and they start off with a little bit of love bombing, which is basically doting on the person and manipulating them into believing that you will do anything for them and they are the most important thing in the world, and it gets their mind into a place where they feel safe with you, and then isolating them from friends and family. They'll spend less and less time with their friends. They'll start being manipulated into not liking their own family, and it's a horrible cycle. And obviously we see with Brian and Gabby, first he took her down to Florida, and then it was like, and she wanted to move, but then she didn't come home for the holidays, and then they were traveling across country in a van.
So isolation, basically.
Did he take her on the van trip to try to control her?
What was that?
Did he take her on the van trip to control her, you think?
I feel like now that I know, I do. I feel like that was a way to get her away from everyone. Yeah.
It's funny you bring up the love bomb, and I learned that expression last night. I finally watched a Netflix Lacey Peterson.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that was really good.
Talking about he was love bombing.
Okay, I need to watch that then. Apparently.
Yeah, I he's cheating on Lacey, he's love bombing with her.
And I also recommend Worst Ex Ever. It's a series. It's got 4 episodes right now, and it has 4 very different cases that have domestic violence, stalking, assault. I mean, really, really good show with a lot of teaching tools in it. So yeah, I recommend it.
Okay. I will recommend one that's not domestic violence related, but I thought was good. And you watched it. Actually, I watched it after you told me to watch it, which was Dirty Pop on Netflix. I thought that was phenomenal. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's phenomenal.
That was like Lou Pearlman had all those bands in an abusive relationship, especially because
not physically abusive, but abusive. You're right.
They were in fear. Yeah. They were in fear of speaking up. They were in fear of losing their careers. They were almost like held hostage. And even though when things were going awry and they weren't making money, no one wanted to because they knew if they would have spoken up or quit the band, then their careers would be over. He'd destroy their career. It was
abuse can happen in so many different relationships, friendships, family. It's not just intimate partner. And, obviously domestic violence focuses on intimate partners, and people have to realize that those relationships can happen with anybody in your life.
Someone asked what thing about Lacey Peterson. There's a 3-part Netflix series. I don't know what it's called, but it just literally came out. It's on Netflix right now. I think it maybe is Scott Peterson.
Yeah, it's mostly about him and the way it was crazy. Yeah. I won't tell anybody what happens because
I haven't seen it yet, so don't spoil it.
You should watch it. And I watched it because I was particularly interested in watching it just because I know he's trying to do an appeal right now, and I'm thinking, why the hell on earth would the Innocence Project work with him? And so
that drove me, and I was like, are they kidding? I mean, there's so much evidence. I
think they're more. They feel like. I saw an interview with one of the women from it, and she's saying that we're taking the approach, not necessarily whether he's innocent or guilty. He didn't get a fair trial because there was DNA evidence that was withheld. And so, and then also the discrepancy with the police department. They knew that the house next door wasn't robbed on the 26th or 27th. It probably was the 24th, and that might have put reasonable doubt in the jury's mind. And so,
don't tell Justin the whole story, because he needs to watch it.
I think that's why. But there's so many blaring things. I mean, number one is they lived in Modesto, and he went fishing 90 miles away, and they happened to find her in the same. I mean, there's a zero chance. I mean, there's just too many things about that story.
Somebody wrote Chris Watts. Yeah,
you know who just moved to the Nashville area?
No.
Casey Anthony.
Justin's gonna go hang out with her.
I am not. My wife said that if we interviewed her, she would leave me.
I would have no desire. Like, again, I try to explain to my 12-year-old son.
Who's still in here, by the way.
There are some people that just cross that line and there's no coming back from it. Like,
she's one of them.
What she did is so horrible. It's like, great, she's out, that, whatever. But there's like, it is never be forgiven on certain things. So
you just see the doc with the parents? They just did a doc.
I've heard about it, but I haven't seen it.
Oh my God, it's wacky.
I'll check that out too.
Yeah.
I want to go back. I wanted to say this too, just to give you the thing. Going back to the Lou Pearlman doc, the Dirty Pop one. The one thing, and I'm going to spoil this one thing. The one takeaway to me that just kind of showed the amount of power this guy had was the 9/11 story. You remember that one, Dan? Mm-hmm. So this guy, Nikki, 9/11 happened. He was in New York. He needed to get back to Orlando. And if you remember 9/11, they grounded every single plane.
Actually, they shut every flight down.
And this dude calls up W and gets a plane. That's how much power he had. And that is just, to me, it's mind-blowing.
Unbelievable. Why do we give people that much power? Well, I don't understand.
He also, what was it, the worst Ponzi scheme, or the biggest Ponzi scheme ever in history, like $500 million he ran through.
Yeah.
You should watch that one, though, for real. It's good.
Yeah, but all of those artists were, they were almost like held hostage. Like they really, and they were
being abused. Yeah, they were manipulated and thought that he was like.
They were financially abused too. Those groups, especially.
I mean, even when they all knew that they couldn't do it, and no one really. It was very weird. They couldn't get out of it, and they were feared. They were in fear for losing their career and everything, so they just played along with it. I mean, it was very much like a Stockholm syndrome thing.
Yeah, these kids come from nothing, and you offer them this lifestyle, and of course, they were going to be manipulated. So.
Maybe that's what was going on with Cassie and Diddy, because, I don't know, because she was being abused, but for whatever reason.
What is that doc called with the boy band one, right?
It's Dirty Pop.
Dirty Pop.
Well done. It's well done. And they've all talked about it. There's just crazy stuff, and
it's a crazy one, because it's another light into that. Like those guys like NSYNC and Backstreet Boys, they were making no money when they were in their heyday. Like he took all of it.
But wasn't it interesting?
I didn't know any of that.
You learned in the doc that everybody thought Lou Pearlman fleeced NSYNC. That was always the thought. It turns out he never really made any money on them. He sold them off to BMG in order to get money to fund his.
He was trafficking them.
Basically.
He was pimping them out, but all the money went to BMG because he took money from BMG.
So Mickey, Jim's here.
That's crazy. What's that?
I said Jim's here. Should we invite him up?
Yeah. I thought he was sleeping.
Not anymore.
Where's he at?
I invited him.
You invited
him? If he wants to come in, he can. If he doesn't, that's okay.
He probably can't sleep. He's a terrible sleeper like me.
Me too.
Well, PTSD and everything.
We're not inviting Dylan Lacey. Don't encourage him.
Yeah, please do. My son will just try to tell us Kanye's a good guy. It's just, You have to try to teach people, like, you can't get second.
Kanye's not a good guy.
No, when people do certain things, you can't give them. I mean, Kanye's had 50 chances, but this last time he crossed the line. There's just no going back from it. And I'm shocked that people in the industry are even willing to work with him right now. I mean,
There he is. Got it. You gotta like turn your camera on, Jim.
Yeah, how do I do that?
Yeah, click on yourself and then hit the little camera icon.
Real quick, while they're trying to figure that out, you hit your name and you'll see camera. Real quick, while Jim's trying to figure this out, we're trying to get Joe's already there, Nikki's already there. I don't know if Tara is, but Jim is the one trailing behind the most as far as needing followers, so he can go live with it. Oh, because he doesn't have 1,000, he can't turn his camera on.
Yeah, I can't turn the camera on.
So if y'all can please like just follow Jim as well. You have to. Jim is Gabby.
Just leave your magic wand right now. You have all these followers. We can get them.
I just said that. I just asked him. I said, please give him a follow while you're here. And I said that
You gotta bring Jim on an unsubscribe night, Justin. Bring him on and
Well, this is subscriber live is off right now.
Oh, it is. Oh, cool. All right.
So they reward you like TikTok only you use your camera until you get a certain amount of followers. That's bizarre. I didn't know that.
That's funny.
He's at 182, so we need to get him. We have like 800 to go.
Yeah, I didn't even have to put a shirt on. I didn't even realize that. I was scrambling around looking for a shirt.
Yeah, look at that. You could just be,
By the way, Jim, this is the famous Dan I keep telling you about.
Oh, hey, Dan, I heard a lot about you.
Nice to meet you.
Nikki told me she was going to bed. She's trying to keep that East Coast schedule. Apparently not.
No, I know. And then I started scrolling, and I was like, "Hi, Justin," and oh my God, hi, Dan. And then he was like, "I'll invite you in." I was like, "Fine, I'm so tired."
There's at 600 to go live in Australia, so you may only need 600.
They're like, he's over 200 now. Like they're actually trying to get him to 1,000.
We've done it before. We've done this. I mean, this is not the first time we've had to get people a certain. I'm not gonna. First of all, I'm definitely not gonna charge. I would charge you because you're worth. Because you're worth $500 million.
I'm a subscriber. I have to pay to have the luxury of talking to Justin.
Oh, wow.
So the joke about this is, and I didn't know this. Apparently, if you Google him, one of these like Dan Catullo networks says he's worth like $500 million, and he's not.
But yeah, I have money stashed all over the world. So, oh my God,
you're like Diddy. You got $1 million in cash on hand.
I wish. Holy moly!
Gonna dig up coffee cans in the backyard.
Yeah, I know, right?
So this all started, Jim. We wanted to get an update from Nikki about going to the White House because that's kind of a big deal.
Oh my God, it was amazing. I was so proud of her.
That's incredible.
I mean, she's like her and Tara.
Sir.
I mean, they're so inspirational. I don't know how they find the time and the energy to do what they do. You see a lot of stuff out there that they're doing occasionally, on social media or whatever, but people don't really truly see what's going on behind the scenes, the day in and day out stuff, the emails, the phone calls that they take, the hard work that they're doing. I've always been a behind the scenes type of person myself. That's always kind of been my role. Mm-hmm. So, but to sit back and see them behind the scenes doing things, then out there in the public and just doing it with a smile on their face and genuinely just trying to help people, it's just amazing. And I'm so proud of them.
We talked about it earlier. We're just real. We're just ourselves. Like we're real people. We're not trying to be anything other than we are.
No, and I put something out before, and it's taken a long time. For me, trying to like this year, looking at we're I guess now a day away from the September 19th.
The 19th is when we found Gabby. Mm-hmm.
And for me, like I'm just trying to look at things now and be thankful. Be thankful for everybody that we had, and to see Nikki be able to.
The type of people you guys are, because some people go in a dark hole. Some people live their life angry, and some people, try to help others. And the fact that you guys have really banded together to try to help others and, turn this into something positive just is so admirable. And it makes made me want to try to help you guys because I don't know what I would ever do. I have a lot of friends, unfortunately, who have lost their children. I don't know. It's hard. It would be hard not to be a very angry person the rest of my life. And I don't know how you guys do it. I don't know how you guys, get up every day and
we don't either.
Let's talk about that. Look at Nikki though. Nikki forgave him. Like I know she's right here. She forgave him, and like that's
You know,
she's a bigger person than me. I did, you know, it's not. Gabby wasn't even my kid, and I don't forgive him. So you know, it's.
I explained it to somebody recently. I'm very empathic, and I needed to let that go. I needed to forgive him, so I wouldn't hold that burden. So yeah, I won't forgive his mom though.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. He was definitely I don't say a victim, but he was definitely a product of his surroundings. We'll put it that way.
Right, you know, you can't. You know, that's a lot of weight to carry around, to hold a grudge and be angry the rest of your life. And you know, so it's really hard. It's a big step to get through that. But
it's a huge step to get through.
But even after you go through that, even when you're doing what you're doing now, because you know, going out and helping people, you're reliving that nightmare every day.
Yeah.
You know, every day. I mean, talking about your daughter and her losing her life is just not a, you know, I'm sure you never thought you'd be in that position. And so it's really admirable. And, you know, and because I deal with a lot of families. I see a lot of fathers and people that just shut completely down and they can't function. And then you have the trailblazers like you that are just out there, you know, kicking doors down and saying, we're going to stop this and we're going to turn this into something good. And really, like, I can't applaud you enough for doing that, because it's really, and what you've done in such a short period of time is nothing short of amazing.
And you know, it's not, the thing is, it's not just her either. It's all of them. Like,
yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. They band together. This is crazy.
You know, and Jim and Tara might technically be step parents. We call them bonus parents because they've been there since she was. They're just as much, you know, Gabby's parents too. And for all four of them to be on basically this same page and come together to help people. Like, I know we're talking about you like you're not here, but I mean, the truth of the matter is, it's pretty damn amazing because you guys actually are making waves with everything. So.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You went to the White House, for God's sake.
I know. Oh my God, I'm right there.
But by the way, she got invited. It wasn't like she put in a request to go. Like, that's a pretty cool thing.
I saw the video. And it's like she could reach out and like actually touch the White House.
Yeah.
I was so close. Yeah.
I had to tell her that it was, you know, it was on. I forget what TV channel it was on, and I was watching it live. And the camera that was on was on her and a few other people. They were all taking like selfies in the crowd. And so you see the camera like pan off of them because everybody's taking selfies, and it was awesome. She didn't really believe me at first. I'm like, fast forward to like 43 minutes, you'll see yourself taking a selfie. But I'm like, how do you not? Like, how do you not when you're that close to the White House? You know?
I wanted to show how close I was to the president was standing right there, and I was like, oh my God. And you know, you can't be political in those moments. You have to just be grateful that you're there. And
I've told people, I don't care who's in office. If I'm invited to the White House, I'm going. I don't care who it is.
Exactly.
Yeah,
you don't turn that down.
Yeah, it's a cool experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and you know, Biden, you know, it'd be great if you could meet him in person one day, just because, you know, he knows what it's like to lose a child. So, you know, he could be a great help. We're hoping, if all goes well, we should be with him by the end of November when he signs the Stop Campus Hazing Act in the law. So hopefully that'll happen. Yeah, we should try to get a bill passed with you guys that all law enforcement has mandatory domestic violence training.
I feel like, though, Dan,
Nikki was giving me stats, and it's just mind-boggling that most police departments don't even do any domestic violence training, and then some that do, like, they cut the programs. And we're talking like some of these things are like half a day seminars or a couple hours. It's just mind-boggling to me. That's something that's so common, one of the most common things that they'll encounter on a day-to-day basis being a police officer, and they don't get any special training for it at all.
Did she give you the stats on how many police officers are actually domestic abusers themselves? Did you give those stats?
She gave me a ton of stats that blew my freaking mind.
It's like 40%. It's very, very high.
This is
44%.
This is a much bigger problem. And I don't know if maybe it's taboo. People don't want to talk about it or whatever, but it is mind-boggling to me how this is much more common than I thought it was. And the fact that more isn't being done. I mean, it's kind of unfair that you guys are even dealing with this right now. I mean, you should be trying to find positivity in your life and trying to heal. Instead, you're out there trying to make sure this doesn't happen to other people.
Maybe that's part of the healing journey for them, though.
I know it makes you feel good knowing that something positive is coming out of your story, but it is unfair that you're having to live relive this over and over again. I mean, this shouldn't be something that's happening, but it is.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw the video Tara and I posted yesterday. It was in response to, a domestic violence call. She called for help, and he clearly was holding her against her will. She said choking me out. That's a lot of them use the word choking and strangling, and they arrested her. I didn't understand. I watched the whole video like 3 times, and I was just really upset by it because I really did see Gabby in that moment, and her face was so defeated when she found out she was getting arrested. This is why we need the training. This is why we need to work with law enforcement. Yeah, it's just hard. It's hard to watch, but I know that we can make a difference if we.
Well, you are making a difference.
Yeah, you are. I mean, you are making the difference.
You are.
4 states.
Yeah.
Yeah.
4 states. People are better protected because of y'all.
I mean, you may not know for sure, but I'm sure that you've saved a life, or you definitely saved lives already. You may not know it.
I can tell you this with a actual certainty, because I remember this happening when everything was going on in real time. There were a lot of people that would come into the lives who would talk about Gabby's case gave them the strength to finally leave. Mm-hmm. And I remember having somebody message me one time saying, I'm at a hotel now, I'm trying to get away from him to get to another state, and I just wanted to let you know that you covering this story has made that happen. And I've had, Joe has been coming into my lives for a long time, and even people have come and said to him, like, hey, y'all's story, seeing you guys on TV, what Gabby went through, I was finally able to get free. So, you might not hear all the stories, but those are the people that come into these lives and speak out. I can't even imagine the numbers that don't say anything. So it's you guys have probably saved hundreds, if not thousands of people, truthfully.
Yeah, I hope so. Thank you. I said from the beginning, even if it's just one, it's worth it. One life saved is worth it all, but I know it's been more.
Yeah, which is great. I think and the thing is, it is a taboo subject, and I think the problem with taboo subjects is they shouldn't be taboo, right? And the more we talk about them, the less taboo they become. So I think with like the law enforcement thing, for example, somebody just says about the whole first responder space, and Jim, you're a first responder, right? So there's like a whole thing about that, but at the same time, if there's room for change, there's room for change. It's not going against like Back the Blue or anything like that. It's not a movement against that. It's the reality is 44% of people, in law enforcement are domestic abusers, including at least one officer on the call in Moab, right? Like the main officer. So the point is that needs to be talked about, that needs to be exposed, because how can you expect a police officer to come out on a domestic call and expect to save that person or help that person when they are going to empathize more with the abuser than the person being abused? And that's what's got to change.
Yeah, we talked to another dad. His daughter was a Hillsborough County deputy, and she was murdered by another Hillsborough County deputy, her boyfriend, and he had a history of abuse, but they didn't do anything about it. It's called Officer Involved Domestic Violence, OIDV, and that's a big problem because it's always swept under the rug. And if he had been, arrested and lost his job before that, she probably would have never even met him. So it's a shame. It's really a shame.
So I have a cousin that's a psychiatrist in Miami, and he was doing his residency. He was at University of Miami Hospital. And when police would bring in people who needed mental evaluations or psychiatric holds, he was the one that would be on call for that. And he told me a long time ago, he's like, oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes, the officers that would bring these people in fit the same criminal profile of the criminals they were bringing in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is it because they believe their own hype, like they're put in a position of power, and then it becomes like a power trip, and they run with it, or?
We talk about this often, and I've talked about it with social workers. I've talked about it with DV advocates, and I don't know how much it's really been studied. And even in my own industry, in the fire service, I started trying to put together some trainings for the fire service because we get so little training on domestic violence. And as I was doing research and researching stories, fire rescue, domestic violence training, what was coming up was story after story of firefighter, murders wife, paramedic abuses wife, so it's in our industry too.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and it's not talked about in our industry either.
Well,
So
people are probably scared even to get help because I think they'll lose their job. You know,
you
Of
lose a
course,
job,
mental
afraid to
health is a
speak
big
out.
problem.
You know, you're in a high stress job, for one, so you're dealing with traumatic situations often. I'm sure there's some PTSD going on there. I don't know if that has something to do with it. I don't know what the correlation is between the two. Oftentimes, a lot of people have a lot of adverse childhood experiences that are never dealt with, and then they come into these jobs and have more stress piled onto them. And you know, when you're at your job, when you're a firefighter or you're a cop, when you're there, your job is to be in charge and take control of a situation. And when you come home and you feel like you don't have control over that situation, is that where things go off the rails? I don't know. And I think that's something that should really be looked at. You know, I know, well, I say their names. I say the victims' names. So Nikki was talking about Abigail Bieber before. She was the Hillsborough County Sheriff. Abigail's name should be remembered, and her story should be talked about. She should have never, ever met that guy. He should have been off that force long before she ever came on, and it was swept under the rug, you know? So it's just crazy, you know, just to hear this over and over again. And when we're on here, and I always look at the comments below, and as we talk more and more about domestic violence, and Justin, you said it's a taboo subject, but the more we talk about it, the more I look into the comments, I see more and more people opening up about their experiences as domestic violence, a lot of survivors. And I think there's a lot of power in that because suddenly they feel that they can speak, that it is safe for them to speak. And I think I said it earlier tonight on the TikTok that I put out, that survivors' stories are very powerful. And if they feel comfortable to do so, they should be speaking up and telling these stories. And I think the more and more we talk about it, the more we bring attention to these issues, then hopefully we could really make some change. People are what make change.
Absolutely. And that's giving them the power back too. They take the power back by having it, because the thing about stories like this, so I mean, y'all may or may not know this. I'm no contact with my mom. And after today, I'm probably going to be completely no contact with my dad, not even limited. But that's a different subject for a different live. But talking about being no contact with your parents has been a very taboo subject till you know the stats that 26% of millennials and Gen Z are no contact with a parent, right? And the more you talk about, the more you find out. But the point about that story, my story, and with domestic violence or anything of these subjects is that if people didn't want the stories told, they shouldn't have done the things to make the stories. They become your stories too when the stories happen to you. So in cases of domestic violence or no contact or whatever the case is, if the person who was the abuser doesn't want their story told, then they shouldn't have done what they did. It's your story too.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, with Starla, I was talking to Nikki one day. She gave me crazy stats because we were talking about it, you know. And by the way, we don't want to discourage people from getting restraining orders, but it's shocking to me on how sometimes restraining orders actually make things worse. And, you know, restraining order is just a piece of paper, and most police departments and courts don't really protect someone that actually has the restraining order. It's just mind-boggling. And that's really scary because if something's bad enough for a court to issue a restraining order, that person should feel safe and should be protected. And if someone violates a restraining order, they shouldn't get a slap on the wrist.
Yeah, my friend's daughter was murdered. She broke up with him. He came and he lured her out to the car with her dog, and he killed her. And then, he was on parole, and he had violated his parole multiple times, and then they never arrested him. They never put him back in jail, and he was a violent offender. He had previous records, and if they had done their job, she would be alive today. So it drives me crazy why the laws aren't in place to protect victims.
There was a recent story in Nashville where something very similar happened. A girl was in an abusive relationship. He beat her within an inch of her life. They found her in the car. He was arrested and charged. And the girl's dad said, if you let him out, I think they were in Alabama. They were in Alabama or Mississippi. I can't remember which. And the dad said, if you let him out, he will kill my daughter. Like, don't let him out. Mm-hmm. So
I heard about this one.
Yeah. So he was offered parole, but was told he couldn't go back to Alabama. He had to stay in Nashville. But there was some kind of mix up when they let out. The person who was supposed to put his ankle monitor on him wasn't the company that the judge wanted, and that company couldn't get to him till Monday, so he lied to the ankle bracelet, basically the company that was supposed to give the ankle bracelet. And by the time they realized the mistake, a week had passed, and she was already dead. So it's where the judicial system. Okay, that makes sense with Mississippi. It really needs to do a better job. And the thing is, with women, it's so bad. I mean, look, we know. I'm not trying to downplay that men can be abused. I don't want to hear that. We're not talking about that right now. But
Yeah.
like for women, especially now, if you date them or you decide to go out with them or whatever the case is, they might kill you. If you tell them no, they might kill you. If you just stay silent, they might. Like, there's no way to be safe, unfortunately.
I know it's scary when you have daughters and like.
I have a daughter, and so does Dan.
But,
So, yeah.
Nikki, like, do you know, or can you say, out of all the states right now in the country, which state has done the most to try to protect victims of domestic violence? Like, what is the safest state if you're trying to get away from your abuser? Is there a state that has very strict laws or is a little more proactive than others?
I wouldn't say there's a state as a whole. There's certain counties that do better jobs. I think California is definitely ahead of the game with their coercive control laws. I believe that they have passed something recently, but
The California's a shit show when it comes to restraint orders. They don't enforce them at all.
oh no, they're all the same. It's a piece of paper. Yeah, I think that a restraining order should require an ankle monitor, and so that the location is known, because if they're obviously on their way to go kill their person that they that they were with, then
Is there a state you want to put on blast? Is there a state that's just not doing really anything to protect women?
I mean, yeah, Jim can pipe in on this too. Like, it's not really the states. It's really up to the counties. Some counties do better. In Florida, like, for example, we have some counties doing fantastic jobs, and other counties just don't have the resources. They're very rural, and I know I have a list because I have my design in. But yeah, do you got any more on that, Jim?
No, it's just, it varies so much. A lot of the stuff that we've been doing, we look at, it's just all over the place. And to say that, hey, because you live here, you're 100% safe, that's never accurate. But there are things out there that blow my mind, like strangulation. Strangulation is a felony in pretty much every state, but less than like 90% of people who are charged with felony strangulation ever get convicted of it.
I have an interesting stat for you, because I worked with Senator Kunze in Ohio, because she passed Collins Law, and which is a Hazen bill, but one of her other bills that she was most notable from pushed through. Before Collins Law, she actually got a bill passed that made strangulation a felony. Like in Ohio, up until a couple of years ago, it was legal to strangle someone.
Yeah, and it's crazy.
Is that insane? Like it wasn't even a misdemeanor. It was not even illegal.
Yeah, it really is. And when it comes to it, I hate to call it the perfect crime, but less than 50% of people who are strangled ever have an external mark on their body. And, often they say, oh, he just choked me a little bit or whatever it might be. And the fact of the matter is, it takes very little pressure on somebody's neck to restrict blood flow. It's really about restricting the oxygenated blood. So when you look at the anatomy of your neck, and I'm actually like showing you right now on me, but you can't see me because I can't go live. But on the center of your neck, you have right now you can feel your Adam's apple, your trachea is right there. That's where it goes down to your lungs. It's not actually pushing down on the trachea, but on either side of it, you have your carotid artery, right? The carotid artery is what sends oxygenated blood to your brain. Your brain needs oxygen more than any other organ. And all it takes for me to push down on that carotid artery is probably about 8.5 pounds of pressure to restrict the blood flow of oxygenated blood flow to your brain, and to start causing damage where you'll pass out. You become incontinent. You can, urinate yourself, defecate yourself. You begin to have memory loss. Extended strangulation can cause seizures, stroke, carotid dissections.
And these victims are not good witnesses, okay? Because they forget, they blacked out, they don't remember anything. So a lot of the times there is no evidence.
Yeah,
I'm not going to call names out, but to show how common this is, I've seen 3 people on the messages below that said they were strangled.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very common. Very
And
common.
real quick too, guys, Jim needs like another 300 people so we can see his visuals. So if you
Oh, he's getting up there. Good job,
The
Justin.
power of Justin. Look what's happening here.
what?
Power of Justin.
It's crazy. Like Nikki just said too, their memory is off. So there's a portion of your brain, it's called the hippocampus, and that is the portion of your brain that is most responsible for memory. So the best way that it's described when somebody's strangled and you're deprived oxygen to that part of your brain, try writing down like what you did during the day, what happened on a piece of paper, on a note. Now fold that up into like over and over again, like a piece of origami, and rip it into shreds and throw it up in the air. A strangulation victim now, as things are starting to come back to them, are slowly picking up those pieces of that paper and trying to piece things back together. So if law enforcement, fire rescue is on scene and the person is, they remember something now and then they remember something later, they don't seem credible to them. They're not a credible, witness for them because of that memory loss. There's no marks, and really they need diagnostic testing in emergency rooms to check for these hidden injuries, because a lot of times the injuries are hidden and potentially fatal, and not necessarily at that moment. Later on down the road, it could be 3-4 days, they suffer a stroke and they're dead. And it may or may not go back to that strangulation incident, depending on how it was documented and recorded. And it's just something that we really want to try to bring to light, and it just blows my mind that we know that people who strangle an intimate partner, it's not a matter of if they're going to kill them, it's when they're going to kill them. They're the most dangerous people that walk the face of the earth, people who strangle. I mean, there's all sorts of research.
It's very personal.
It's personal. It's up close. They've interviewed people who strangled women, and they ask why they strangled. And, they said, because I no longer had to yell and scream. I could be inches away from their face and control everything they did just by whispering in their ear and holding their throat, just by squeezing it just a little bit. And it's really disgusting.
It's also the worst for law enforcement because it leaves the least amount of evidence. There's no blood.
Yeah.
There's no the forensic evidence.
We took the strangulation training, and the worst part of it that I heard that they were playing like victims videos, so victims that made it through and didn't die. This one girl, she said she remembers being strangled and looking into his eyes, and the last thing she thought was, "I'm gonna die, so I'm just gonna look away, so I don't have to see his. That's the last thing I see. I don't want that to be like the last thing I look at." So she looked away, and that just like hit me so hard because it made me think of my own situation and my daughter's, and just what she went through in those last moments of her life, being strangled. It's like awful. It's awful to think about.
What's mind-boggling to me is that we only have 600 people in this live, but there's an astronomical amount of people in the comments that said that they were victims of domestic violence. I mean, I'm just...
The numbers are staggering.
I'm actually getting angry now. This is crazy.
I just want to also acknowledge them and thank them for sharing that, because it's important for us to keep talking about it so that other survivors can come forward and get out of that situation. It really does inspire people and help people. So
what about doing a doc on it, Dan? The stuff that you've done for the fraternity is pretty incredible. I'm sure Nikki would be happy. Nikki, Jim.
Talked about stuff already.
I've already been running some ideas past Nikki, but yeah, I mean, this is the fact that, I'm just being educated on this, but the fact that even the court system, the police, everybody knows how rampant this is and more is not being done is pretty insane. Wow.
Yeah. And Jim, we were talking about Diddy before. That's what they were talking about before I came on.
Oh my God.
Yeah, Jim, you want to weigh in on all this stuff that happened today, or do you need any bit of a recap?
Oh, no. My coworker and I have been following this for a while. And the crazy part is before his house got raided, my coworker, Ashley, she's awesome. And this was months and months ago. And I don't know, she has a friend that I guess is kind of behind the scenes in the music industry or whatever. And her friend had told her months before they raided Diddy's properties that watch out for Diddy. They're going to be coming after him. He's going down is what she was told. And then all of a sudden, boom, the house in Miami gets raided, this one gets raided, and then he's like jet setting off wherever he's going. And then you don't hear anything. And, everyone's like, well, what's going on? And then all of a sudden it comes out, it comes down federal indictment. I think it was the Southern District Court in Manhattan.
Which has an incredibly high conviction rate, as I'm sure you know.
It's like 95 to 97% conviction rate. I think the FBI office out of there has got a really high conviction rate, over like 92%.
And the FBI's got a high rate in general. So, yeah.
And so
now you're looking at RICO charges,
racketeering, right? They got them on human trafficking, sex trafficking, transporting across lines.
Yep.
I saw something today, it was on a couple different social media platforms. I don't know how true it is, but they found like 1,000 bottles of baby oil.
Baby oil and lube.
I don't mean to laugh, but it's like, what? I mean,
1,000 bottles of baby oil and lube. They took electronic devices that filmed the freak offs that he was doing. They also found 3 AR-15s with filed off serial numbers and a 59 round drum mag.
You know what I understand about the AR-15s? He didn't have a felony. He didn't have a previous felony. He could have gotten a gun legally, right? So why would
I think that's the point, is why did he have 3 defaced AR-15s?
Yeah, I mean, he could have gotten ones legally, or he could have had a security bring. Especially in Florida. Having semi-automatic weapons is not a big deal. So I don't know why.
Yeah, somebody just says, I hope for the lube and the baby oil. Some of y'all were invested in Johnson & Johnson while he had these things.
I mean, crazy. I just...
I hope more victims come forward and or have the courage to come forward, so he gets more charges, like all that he deserves, because these people have probably been silent for so long.
Well, he would pay so many people off to make sure that nothing came to light, which is one of the reasons why you got to have this racketeering charge.
And going after it. The most damning thing for him is that he would intimidate witnesses and so. He's acting like a crime boss.
Yeah. I was just thinking mob boss. He's a mob boss.
Yeah, he was. That's exactly when you're describing what he's doing by paying people that are beneath him to do these jobs. He's like the head of the family, and they're all. I mean, it's not exactly what it is, but it's kind of what it is.
Hey, Jim, you're a firefighter, or are you a paramedic with the fire department?
I was a firefighter, EMT up in New York for about 23 years. After everything happened with Gabby, I had some health issues, as well as physical and some mental health stuff, and I realized it was time to stop with the 24-hour shifts and working in multiple firehouses, and it was time to be home more with the family.
How often would you get calls to go on domestic violence calls?
So that brings up a great point. And at the time, the majority of the country uses something called emergency medical dispatch, priority dispatch. It's a way for when you call 911 to code that call and prioritize it. And the code for a call for violence is like a 4. It's like code 4 Bravo 1, 4 Delta 1. And we don't always necessarily know when we get that call that it's a domestic violence related call. We know we're going to a call for violence, whether it's a shooting, stabbing, a fight. And typically what happens is you would get told to stand by in a safe location until law enforcement clears that scene. Once it was clear, you would come in. If there was injuries, you would treat the injuries and transport the person. Most times we didn't really get into, what the cause was. And I'll tell you, like when I started 25 years ago, I worked with a really good partner, and I remember like the first violence call I went on, and it was a fight. It was like a bar fight. And I said to him, I'm like, what do we do for this? How does this work? And his response was, I'll tell you what I was told. And he had been doing it for 15 years already at that point. He said, the losers go in the ambulance, the winners go with the cops.
What about with domestic violence cases? Did you ever have a hard time convincing a victim to go to the hospital? I mean, you get there, and do a lot of them not want to go because they're fearful?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't have any training on it, but like I can remember one specific case where it was actually the man was getting abused, and he was afraid. He refused to go because he was afraid.
Yeah.
That she would retaliate against him for going, but I'm sure Jim has more stories.
Yeah, a lot of times, because they have the right to refuse as long as they're not altered mental status. So for like altered mental status could be, like from a head injury, or if they're under the influence of alcohol or drugs. Technically, if they're under the influence of one of those, they don't have the right to make a rational decision for themselves. and then you can kind of mandate them to go. But
you guys legally can't take them if you think they're in danger or whatever. Like,
no, it's kidnapping. Technically, wow. Yeah, we can't. So
if you guys suspect a gnarly domestic violence case, and you guys have a gut feeling that something can happen if you leave that person there, you can't force them to come.
At that point, it's a law enforcement issue. Our job is mainly just to treat any injuries that they might have or illnesses at that moment. And I've now looked back on a lot of calls that I went on, and I realized that we had missed opportunities, that we were at a domestic violence call that might not have been, identified as such. But looking back on it and, taking all these classes that we've been doing over the last couple of years, reading all the stories out there, I look back on a lot of these stories and go, man, I completely missed this. Like, I could have done something differently. Maybe I could have guided them to resources. Maybe I could have spoke to them a little bit differently. Maybe I could have, mentioned something to the nurses at the ER to have like a social worker come down that can better treat them.
And that's why we're starting a training program for first responders, because we want the whole country to have, we call it unseen advocates. So everybody is really available as an advocate. And we think that all community members and 911 operators, first responders, nurses in the hospital, prosecutors, judges, lawyers, everybody in between that helps a victim.
It's just continuity of care. Anybody who comes in contact with a person who's a victim of domestic violence should have equal training. And all it takes is, it's a really long and terrible process in a lot of places, especially when all those services aren't in one place for them to go. If they have to go to the court building over here, and then they have to go to a social worker, the next town over, it's very difficult for them.
I always think about too, like what happened with Gabby, right? Like in Moab, what if they just decided to call an ambulance because she said that he was doing this to her? Like why couldn't they make that decision? Like somebody else could intervene and help get her away from him. And I always think about that.
Yeah, it's kind of infuriating that they were in that video they were talking about how they should take her to jail because of it. But you kind of look at it and you kind of wish they had taken her to jail.
Yeah.
I think yeah, because we would have probably.
I would feel like he would have called. Yeah, I think I have a feeling that if that had happened, she'd have called you and you'd have been like, "This is done."
Mm-hmm.
So that stop is being used by a really large domestic violence organization for a class that they teach. It's called Identifying the Predominant Aggressor, and for law enforcement, just to see how a victim will be acting in a situation, how they might seem erratic or emotional when they are the ones being abused, and how the abuser is oftentimes cool, calm, and collected. And the story that Nikki shared before out of Florida, you see that again in that same video. She seems erratic. She seems crazy. And
she wasn't even that bad. She was very calm. She was just needing help. She was scared. Yeah.
The thing I didn't even see, because I watched that video a bunch of times, and maybe it's because I came from a family where I have very narcissistic parents, and so you can just kind of see and that's why. So my wife, like at the time, she was like, I was talking about the toxic family and narcissism at the time. I wasn't doing any true crime or current events, and Alyssa, my wife, she's like, "You need to sit down and watch this," referring to the Moab footage. She's like, "You need to watch this. Like, stop doing what you're doing and sit down and watch this." And I said, I'm watching it. And I'm watching Brian. I'm like, this guy acts, the way he speaks, the way he gaslights, even his mannerisms are exactly like my mom.
I mean, there's got to be a way to protect first responders if they make a gut decision to try to separate someone or try to bring them to a safe place and not be worried about being charged with kidnapping or,
there's training you can do to.
If they think something's up, they're not going to do anything because they're going to be afraid of repercussions.
Absolutely, yeah, of course. There's training that you could do to be, basically anybody can be a bystander, and if you're obviously a trained first responder, you can be even more helpful, but it's the way you do it. You can de-escalate. You just gotta do it in a way that makes them want to speak to you, because they don't want to speak to the police most of the time because they're afraid. So
it's a trauma-informed approach. Like, I have to ask certain questions, but it's how I ask those questions. It's how I relate to you. And I always use the analogy that I never approach a child or an elderly person the same way that I would maybe approach somebody my age. Because if I go up to a kid who's hurt and injured and stand over the kid, towering over him, hey, listen, kid, we're here to help you. Tell me exactly what happened to your kid. How'd you break that arm? The kid's going to be scared. I bring myself down on that kid's level. Hey, buddy, what's going on? It looks like you're having a rough day. What happened? Oh, I fell. Well, how'd you do that?
But they're always going to not want to get in the middle of her side. I mean, Justin knows I had a really weird, creepy event happen on my house.
Dan, share this story.
2 months ago.
Yeah.
I had my front door, I'm in my office and it's 11:30 at night. I'm like, who the hell's on my front door ringing the doorbell? And I look at the ring doorbell and there's a little girl with stuffed animals. And I'm like, hello, how can I help you? And she's telling me to let her in. She ran away from home. And I'm thinking so first thing that comes to mind, there's been a bunch of home invasions. So I'm thinking there's going to be guys hiding behind my cars with, masks on. So I'm even scared to answer the door. I answer the door, and sure enough, there's this 6-year-old girl, 11:30 at night. I live on a very private, quiet street, and it's pretty spooky outside. We have mountain lions and coyotes, and I'm like, what the hell? So we let her in. I call 911. The sheriffs come, and she somehow walked over a mile. She was reported missing, her parents. But there's the crazy thing. She was terrified. I had my daughter speaking to her. She was terrified when the police got here. Apparently this wasn't the first time that she ran away like this, and something was definitely going on. But the crazy thing was, consider it was a repeat thing. 6-year-olds just don't run away in the darkness of the night without something serious happening. And I honestly thought they were gonna have a social worker come to talk to her. Nope. They just decided, we're gonna bring you back home and you're gonna deal with this with your parents. And I was thinking Jesus, can I keep her, hold on to her?
Didn't she jump behind the chair?
Didn't your son try to keep that?
She jumped behind the couch when I came in, because she was terrified. She wouldn't even speak to me. So my daughter took her in another room, and my daughter was finally bothering her. She made us swear not to call the police or anybody, but obviously I had to. So when the police got here, when she saw the officer, she dove over the couch, and she was shaking. And I'm thinking okay, something is going on here. I'm not even a trained professional, but something is not freaking right. And they ended up taking her home.
Oh my gosh.
You haven't seen her since.
I'm just this is crazy, because they thought, well, this is between her and the parents. And it's I'm sorry, because they even said, oh, she did this a month ago. I'm like, well, gee, maybe there's a real freaking problem here. But I can't believe they didn't refer to a social worker. At the bare minimum, they should have a social worker come and make that decision. And the police determined whether or not it's safe to send her home.
Yeah, we have to stop this whole societal thought that family matters are left in the home and up to them, and families can treat each other very poorly, and kids should be taken out of the situation when necessary.
Yeah, kids tend to be, unfortunately, one of the most neglected groups when it comes to this stuff. They're oftentimes not treated as real people, even though they are real people. But yeah, I agree. I mean, I have a 5-year-old. You have 2 kids. A 12-year-old. Your daughter's what, 19? Or 18 or 19, something like that. And so you raise kids too. They don't. You guys did also. Nikki and Jim. They don't run away. If they're happy, well-adjusted kids, they don't run away, especially at 6, 7 years old. They just don't.
This was a different type of runaway. This girl was something was terrifying her. This
wasn't. That's what I'm saying. This wasn't like a runaway from home because of whatever.
This was something's going on. And then she was really she was very stubborn and wise far beyond her years, because and then she even got snooty with me because I said because I said, why you tell me what happened? She's like, let me in, shut the door, and I'll tell you what happened. So I let her in, and I'm like,
scary.
Tell me what happened. And she's like, I'm not going to tell you. I'm like, well, we had a deal, didn't we? She's like, deals can be broken.
Oh, jeez.
We're like, what do we do?
There you go.
So my daughter, because my daughter's actually trained to be a first responder now. She's trained to be an EMT, but she's looking at becoming a police officer. But so I said, Bella, talk to her. And we're trying to figure out how to handle this. But she didn't want to talk. She was terrified of men. So you know what it reminded me of? We rescued a dog from the dog meat factories in China. And Willow, the way she acts towards men, because the men were abusing her, so she gets really spooked by men. So she seemed terrified of me and even the police officers. Any men that came around her, she was noticeably shaken. So I'm thinking, Is her dad abusing her? What's going on? And the cops didn't even want to talk about it. They sent her home. You know, like this is something the parents just dealing with. I mean, it's unbelievable. And so, you know, it haunts me because I wonder if she's every day.
I hope that you get an update and I find out that she's okay. And like,
well, here's the other interesting thing. They said, is it okay if they ask, is it okay if we share with the parents your information in case they want to call you and thank you? And I'm like, absolutely. So I thought maybe the next day or something, they're going to call me saying, thank you for open the door and help us find our daughter. Nothing. So now it makes me think, okay, they're abusing her or something, because why wouldn't they at least call me and thanking me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah. So, you know, I only know the vicinity kind of where she lives. I don't know the house or the street. And we drove around like the next couple of days to try to see if we could see her, to try to figure out where she lives, because it didn't sit right with any of us.
I love what you told me your son said, though, right? You said he was like, Dad, can we just keep her?
Yeah, I know. My son's like, can we keep her? And I'm like, Dylan,
like a pet.
He's like, why? She showed up at our door. I'm like, you just can't keep a kid that shows up at your front door.
Not a stray kid.
Like a stray cat. It's like, I mean, I'm just like, we can't keep her. It was, I mean, you just didn't know, but it's like, that was a really weird night. But I saw the way the sheriffs, and there was a bunch of sheriffs here, and I just couldn't believe the way they just, I mean, it was crazy. Like, why would the police even be qualified to make that decision? They should have brought a social worker in. They have a huge Orangewood here, not far from me. They have a big social worker department. They should have called someone in to make a professional decision on that. That was really bizarre. And so, yeah, I think if she said something more, but she was being very cryptic. You know, it wasn't. So, yeah. But I mean, that's why I love what you guys are doing, because there are a lot of great cops, and you know, they all want to help.
There are a lot of phenomenal cops.
They just don't know. I mean, and a lot of them are young. Like, some of these cops are in their 20s. They don't have a lot of training. You can't.
Yeah, and the video that I put out yesterday, that body cam footage, the cops that in the video, the other cops were very young. I could see that they were like brand new. They didn't even barely speak the whole time. They were just kind of standing there.
My daughter went on a ride along last week in Fullerton, and she was with a female cop. She's 24. I mean, that's young. And, you know, the police academy and all the training is only 6 months or something, 9 months. I mean, that's not a lot of time. You're learning a lot of stuff in that brief period of time. And you got to think of, like, psychologists and social workers. They go to school for years to learn some of these things. Mm-hmm. So that's what. But the good news is we have things like the body cam footage. Did anybody ever take all the body cam footage from the Moab thing and edit it together with different angles? Like, make something really like thorough and like throwing things out?
I don't think so.
We really just going to take all their body camera footage.
If you send all that stuff to Dan, he'll take care of it for you.
I can FOIA it, but like.
Yeah. Dan, I just got the other ones too from the Parks Police that were there, the different views.
Yeah, because when you see it from different angles and everything, and then you can pause it, you can put stats up, or you can really, like, you know, there's so many videos now with all the body cam footage from all different incidents. It's easy now to really make effective videos that it's like, oh, of course, this is happening. Like, you know, unfortunately, you know, you guys unfortunately lost your child, and you know, and it has to be used as an example. It's just a horrible way to relive this every day. But knowing that footage is so powerful and can make such a difference, because I think a couple of those guys just didn't know any better.
I think two of them didn't know any better. One of them did.
I think a couple of those guys didn't know what they were dealing with, and then other guys maybe were just arrogant assholes.
Yeah.
You know, but
and if I recall, I think one of the Rangers was a woman, right? And she spoke to that. She ended up quitting right after all of this.
No, she took a leave. But she we just got her body cam footage recently, so that was interesting. She spoke to Gabby. Yeah, she spoke to Gabby separately. So.
Yeah, well, she was trying to, like, I guess, get it out of her, like it's okay, kind of a thing, and just
not really. I don't know. It was kind of like she was agreeing with what everything. I don't know. I mean, Could have done better. Yeah.
All right, fair. By the way, guys, follow Jim if you can. We got him up to.
I'll post this Jim now. Where is he at?
He's at 316. We need to get to 600. So.
And I gotta go to bed, guys. I have
I gotta do it too in a moment.
Session in the morning with Black and Missing. I'm so excited about it, and I want to be awake for it. So
let me know if I can help with that, something like that. Put it out there. I'm happy because I know that's a very worthwhile cause. Unfortunately,
yeah, I think we put it on our page. Joe put it on. There's like a flyer that the Crime Victims Center made, so we could put that up.
Everybody should go on your website and start following you guys. A lot of things are going to start happening in your world. There's big things coming up. I don't know if you can even talk about, but there's things that are going on. But we're going to help you guys and rally the troops behind you guys. I love what you're doing. Just keep doing it. I'm really happy you had the opportunity to go to the White House. I'm sure it's the first of many visits there. And so now, especially now, you're on the radar.
You know what we could do, Dan? If you put something together, whatever it is regarding them or domestic violence, I know you'd be early in the project on that. We could always do like an online, like a pre-screening of it and charge like a little bit, have all the money go to Gabby Petito Foundation.
Oh, of course.
We could do that.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
We can talk about that. Hey, Jim, real quick, and you can jump, Nick, if you have to. But Jim, I have a question for you because I'm just trying to do some math and I'm just curious. So what year did you become a first responder, EMT firefighter?
I'm going to bed. Good night.
Nikki's like, all right, I'm going. I'm out.
I don't want to talk about this.
It was like 99, 2000. I think I graduated the fire academy.
Were you a responder on 9/11?
So here's the crazy thing. I flew out to Florida to visit my dad on September 10th, 2001. And I was in Florida for 9/11.
That's kind of a lucky break for you.
Did you immediately get back up there?
We tried. It was really difficult because all the flights were running. Yeah, I was.
Well, no, but weren't there were fire departments dispatching people from Florida going up though, weren't there?
Yeah, they were. Actually, the department I work for now, they were one of the departments that responded. I actually got on Amtrak. Amtrak ran a special train for first responders to go back up to the New York area, and we met at an abandoned train station in Boynton Beach, Florida. And the whole train was first responders, and it took us like, I think it was over 20 hours to get up there. And I'll never forget because one of the stops was Washington, D.C. And it was supposed to be like a quick stop, let some people off, let some people on. And we were in that station for a bit, and then sitting on the train, and I'm watching all of a sudden these guys in all black with machine guns walking down the platform, and they go like 6 cars down. And they walk onto the train, and we're waiting and waiting. And like 10 minutes later, you see them walking back down the platform the other way with 2 individuals with bags over their head and their hands zip tied behind their backs.
Holy Jesus.
And they disappeared. And we were like, what the heck was that? And yeah.
By the way, that's what we need to start arresting domestic abusers.
So 2 things on that real quick. One is make that a video and you'll get your 1,000 followers. That's a crazy story. Yeah, that's an absolutely crazy story. But if you were Lou Pearlman, you could have had a flight. I'm just saying.
Oh, man.
By the way, pulling string. When the earthquake happened in Haiti in 2010, I was on a first responder team, and the Barron family, who are billionaires, we put a group together from John Muir Medical Center, and we brought 38 doctors and nurses down. And Ken Barron called Hillary Clinton up because the State Department took over the airport in Port-au-Prince the day after they were helping run it, and they got us a landing time. So there were only military jets coming in. So we thought we were special. We had this State Department approval. We were only mission in. Like, we were the first people to get to Lagan, where the epicenter was. But when we get to Haiti, the only other person that pulled strings was John Travolta landed his jet with a bunch of Scientologists. So somehow Scientology got kind of government approval to get a jet in before like military people got there.
Travolta was flying that jet, right?
Yeah, he flew the jet in too. He had like a 727. So the Scientologists eked their way in, and we're like thinking, okay, we're not that special. The Scientologists beat us here.
That's a recruitment event, is what that was.
They have some serious. So.
We took the kids a couple months back on a dolphin sightseeing tour out of Clearwater, which is not too far from where we live. And Clearwater is like the headquarters for Scientology.
Yeah.
And when we're we're out on this boat cruising around. They're giving the tour. The guy's telling you like the different buildings and whose mansions belong to who. And they pointed out this one building, and they said, "You see the top floor there?" They said, "That's Tom Cruise's penthouse up there." And apparently, he has an elevator for his car. So when he pulls into the parking garage, he pulls into his own personal elevator, and it takes it up to his own personal garage, and then he walks into his penthouse on the top floor of this building, which is right next to the Scientology building. I'm like, that's wild. I'm like, you got a car garage that goes up 25 stories or whatever. I'm like, that's amazing.
By the way, the Scientologists, they weren't doing. We're there when they routed us to Fort Lauderdale because that was the holding center to get before we could take off, and they purged our plane to make sure we only had certain medical equipment. Right at the time, they were looking for triage stuff, and a couple people had to get off the plane if you weren't like a certified. I've been an EMT since I was 18, but if you weren't an EMT or you weren't like a first responder, we had a psychologist. They may get off the plane because they needed every seat. So they were picky about what we went in, but the Scientologists, they didn't have any medical professionals. They were doing something called touch healing, where they touch you, and they were giving T-shirts away. And we're like, how did they pull it off? So now the moral of the story is, since Lou Pearlman's dead, if you need to get anywhere in a case of emergency, just call Scientology up. They'll get a plane out.
That's amazing.
Next time a 9/11 happens, that was nuts. But yeah, I mean, by the way, Jim, Nikki just texted us. She put us all on text, so you have my number now. And I've already been talking around to tell you, but we're coming up with me and Justin. We're coming up with a bunch of cool ways to help you guys.
Oh, that's awesome. We really appreciate it.
The Justin Army, as I would call them.
They're trying to get by. Like, speaking of Justin Army, keep following Jim, guys. He's at 330 something. Yeah, just do it. Just follow him. That's all you got. Let's do it because I tell you.
But it was nice meeting you guys. I'm going to bed now too. And Justin, I will talk to you tomorrow because we're talking in the morning, right?
We're gonna talk in the morning. And Jim, I know that it's got to be 2. It's 2 a.m. where you are. 2:07
in the morning. Yeah, I'm playing mom and dad this week since Nikki's away. So I got to get up. I got to make breakfast, take the kids to school. Go to work, come home. I'm like, this mom stuff is hard. Like
it is. They do a lot. You know what's funny? I don't know. I don't know how old all the kids are. I know your kids are like not like young, but my daughter's 5, and she will bypass me just to go like say something to Alyssa. She'll be like, "Mommy, can you do this?" And she'll be like, "Your dad's right there." That's fine. Let her ask you. It's totally okay.
Our youngest is 12. She's a little spark plug. We love her, Kit Kat, and she was a little upset the other day. I was taking her to school. It was actually the day that Nikki was going to the White House, and I'm like, Mom's away for a really good thing, and she's like, "No, I know. I just
go to the White House.
I just get upset when she goes away," and I'm like, "You get more upset when Dad leaves or when Mom leaves?" And she's like, That's a good question.
That's a loaded question is what that was.
And she was like, "I really miss you when you go." I'm like, "Oh, wow, that's sweet. Is that because I'm like sitting right next to you?" And she's like, "Nah, because you say yes a lot more than Mom. You take us for ice cream." I'm like, whoa. So I'm only good for treats, But no, it's awesome.
Because they said their dad had the dad had her miss school when her brother was born because he didn't know how to do her hair.
I can do braids. 3 daughters, 1 son. Even though I'm bald, I can do hair. I've learned how to do it. I would like to say for Gabby, I didn't do such a good job. I was still in the learning phase, but by the time my other daughters came around, I got much better.
So with my daughter's got very, very curly hair. Well, Dan, you've seen her, but like she's got very curly hair, and I can't do anything. And when I try to do her hair, I make her look like a founding father. So I just am not allowed.
Curly hair, I'd be out on that. I'd be out on curly hair.
It is like she's got like the tight, like almost Shirley Temple ringlets.
I know. I think we have a bunch of hair straighteners here. I'd be afraid of like burning the hair off. You'd look like me.
Well, she won't let us straighten it either. So it's yeah. But no, I appreciate the talk. I appreciate you guys coming on. Please, guys, go follow Jim. Look. I'll put it this way: we're trying to get all the people of Gabby's family up to over 1,000 so they can go live. By them going live, they're able to help more people. They're able to spread more awareness surrounding domestic violence, raise money in order to help, the things that they need to do to change laws in your respective states. So please, if that's an incentive to help you follow them, they are making changes. There's 4 states so far, Plus, I think what Joe was saying that y'all are looking at Australia and the UK right now as well because they've asked.
Yeah,
So,
they have. The UK is actually pretty progressive, although they have a huge problem there. They do have some laws for coercive control and locking people up for that. But even in your in the chat here tonight, and every time we go on, we see a lot of people from Australia, and apparently there's a huge problem there. And I forget the count.
My daughter's going to be studying abroad there starting in February. So now you're making me nervous.
I have a lot of Aussie followers, and they're every one of them have been wonderful. So they're just, here's the thing: everything in Australia is trying to kill you. The native language is screaming. Just it's.
If it's not a snake or a spider,
the spiders are this big. Kangaroos will try to kill you. Like beat the shit out of you. So it's fine though.
Yeah.
But give Jim a follow because I know that Joe is there. I know that Nikki's there. I don't know how far Tara is away.
The last I saw, she was like 600 or so on there.
She might be able to get her camera on now. So you're the one. So Jim is lagging behind the most. So let's catch him up.
Yeah, I just got on TikTok. My daughters
She's
are
at
actually with my tech
7:43.
support. So
She's at 7:43 and has never posted a video.
yeah.
That's
Well,
crazy.
I mean, honestly, like, think about it. Like, if I'm going to follow somebody, I'd rather follow Nikki or Tara. You'd rather look at them than look at my ugly mug, right? I mean, come on.
I mean,
you have good stories though.
So, yeah, your stories are like, I'm telling you, I'm looking at you've got like 7 stories that have been posted. You need to post your 9/11 story. You can be like, you can say, I asked.
If we do this educational film, you have a really intimate knowledge, considering the high level of abuse that comes from law enforcement people, and first responders. You can bring a really interesting insight to that world, the stress and everything and how things are handled, but even for the good ones that don't recognize it. I mean, they have a lot on their plate. There's a lot you're expected to know.
Tremendous.
One can argue that the police academy should be 2 years long or 3 years long. Like in Laguna Beach, California, when you get out of the academy, they send their officers to Orange County Sheriff's police academy. But then you're a cadet still. You're still in training. They don't make you an officer for like another 6 to 12 months because they double train. You would think an officer, like if you want to be a police officer, you should be 2 years of training at least. I mean, there's a lot you need to know. And the shocking thing is, one can argue the most common thing that you're going to come across as a first responder, whether you're a police officer or an EMT, is probably domestic violence. And it's something they don't get any training on in some places.
Here's another interesting statistic about strangulation. And this is through a lot of the studies that they did. So 40% of the people who murder police officers in the line of duty have a prior history of strangulation.
What?
So they're not just a danger to the person they're strangling, they're a danger to the public. And a domestic violence call is one of the most common and one of the most dangerous calls for a police officer. And 40% of the people who have murdered cops in the line of duty have a prior history of strangulation.
What about getting legislation passed, like sex offenders have to go in a registry? What about if you strangle people, you have a history of strangulation, you're in some other kind of registry as well that puts you on like a watch list or something? So people are aware of it. If there's that much of a correlation, if you could pinpoint,
there is, but they're not being convicted of it. And that's a huge problem. And there's actually, I did an interview with a reporter down here. I don't know if they're going to publish the story or not, but he's been doing a lot of research down here in Florida in the Sarasota, Manatee, DeSoto County area about the amount of strangulation cases that they've had where the charges have been dropped and the amount of people that have been murdered after they're back on the street. And he's throwing all these numbers and statistics out at me. And he was like, this has got to surprise you. This has to shock you. And I'm like, a couple of years ago, yes. I go, knowing what I know now, I go, it's indicative of what we're seeing nationwide. And
I remember in a criminal justice class I had, where I remember there were studies that were done for murderers who stabbed people versus shot people, and the people who stabbed had far more violent backgrounds and there were longer histories of violence and stuff, because that's very personal to stick a knife in someone. Strangulation is something I think that's even more personal than stabbing someone. I mean, that's probably the most.
And it's slow.
Yeah, I mean, if you're strangling someone, you really are a sick son of a bitch. I mean, it's like, not saying that shooting someone's any different, but yeah, I mean, someone could pull a trigger from 50 feet away, but to actually.
But the thing is, you pull a trigger, that's a split second. Strangulation Jim, what's
take the life
6 minutes?
with your bare hands?
No, it's less than 6 minutes. It can be as little as 30 to 45 seconds, upwards up to like
yeah, you hit the carotid artery. By the way, you weren't paying attention, Justin. He told you how to do it about 40 minutes ago. But,
well, I was probably paying attention. I remember him saying how to do it. I didn't realize that it was 30, 45 seconds. I thought, because I'm thinking about the Piper Elliott story here in Hendersonville, where, she kind of strangled her, but she also held her underwater. So
yeah, there's all different forms, between ligature and then manual, and like I mentioned before, it's like 8 pounds of pressure on the carotid. Outside of there, if you go to the sides of your neck, you have your jugular veins. That's what carries deoxygenated blood away from your brain back to your heart and to your lungs. And it only takes about 4 pounds of pressure on your jugular vein, about 4.4 pounds of pressure to push on that. And what that does is that increases the pressure in your brain. And that's where you start to see like petechiae, hemorrhaging, stroke-like activity, because you're not allowing the blood to flow out. The blood is still pumping in through the carotids, but it's not pumping out through the jugulars.
Has any state enacted a law where strangulation becomes like a capital crime, or is there?
I know it's a felony in a lot of states, but it's like 3 to 5 years, or like 5 to 7 years, something like that. And most of them never get it.
It's such a personal and violent way.
it is.
Well, you would think that they would have enhanced charges by strangulation.
So there's a great organization out of California. We spoke at their conference earlier this year. It's Alliance for Hope International. They run the family justice centers around the country. They have the Training Institute on Strangulation Prevention. So they have a tremendous amount of data on that. They also partner with domesticshelters.org. So they have a lot of trainings on there. And I've seen in the chats a lot of people asking, like, where do I get this training? They have a lot of webinars. They have a lot of online training that you can register for. And they have all of these facts, all this information. Justin, like, you go on there, I mean, they show you the timeline of how long it takes and what are the benchmarks where you start to see certain symptoms that the person is displaying from being strangled. And it doesn't take as long as many people think, and it doesn't take
it took a lot less time than I thought. And again, these are all things, I mean, Jim, you're very informative and you present it in a really good way. Again, I think that, I mean, like I said, I would implement some of these conversations into some of your videos. It might help, obviously, with the growth, and I think that it's good information. There's been a lot of people in here tonight that have been appreciative of this conversation. So I'm just my 2 cents on that for somebody who's been doing this for a minute.
Yeah, and that's definitely somewhere I'm trying to get into that realm a little bit. I know sometimes on social media, when you talk about you can't say certain things on there.
I know it's dumb.
But, if it's for an educational purpose, I'm all for it. So we're trying to expand more into that. We're going to be out in Las Vegas the beginning of October. We're going to be speaking at a conference out there. So if anybody's out in that area, we posted up on our social media as a save the date. October 4th, I believe, we'll be out there. And we got a bunch of stuff coming up next year. So we're just trying to get out there and reach as many people as we can. And get this knowledge out there, because just looking in your chat, there's a lot of people that don't know this stuff.
I mean, I didn't know this stuff.
So it's knowledge is power.
What are the dates in Vegas? Do you know?
I believe it's a 1-day event. I think it's going to be at UNLV. We're finalizing the times, but it should be October 4th. I think it's a Friday. We should be there.
We should talk, because if you guys can pop over to LA on October 3rd, I actually have a big shoot. I could piggyback and do something with you. And
we are flying out on October 3rd because October 2nd, we will be in the Orlando area at a fundraising event for the Harbor House, which is a state-certified domestic violence organization over there. Our friend Michelle is the director of that organization. We'll be there on the 2nd, coming back home that night, flying out on the 3rd. So yeah, it's a little crazy. A lot of stuff happening.
Maybe I'll pop and see you guys in Vegas. So I'll skip and jump from here because I'll be in LA that week.
I think we'll be there till like Sunday. I think we're leaving Sunday morning. So.
All right, well,
they're asking you to make a video on this stuff too. So just saying.
Yeah, we have to talk about this. Is
Huge.
It's just mind-boggling. Yeah, I mean, this is we have to educate law enforcement, educate everybody, but we also have to expose. If this is really that common, I mean, there has to be stricter laws and ways to really.
Absolutely. And I was able to get this training in the fire department I work for now. It's the fourth largest fire department in the state of Florida.
Wow.
So I was able to get some DV awareness and some strangulation training to them. So 1,200 firefighters and paramedics. And we were also able to do about 100 ER doctors and nurses at the regional trauma center here with the same training. So definitely looking to do more, looking to expand more on that, bring that more places. There's only 2 states in the country that require domestic violence training for their firefighters and paramedics, and that is Kentucky and Tennessee are the only 2.
I mean, I don't understand why it's not all 50 states. That's utter insanity.
Well, I mean,
again, it's got to be the most common thing they come across, and there's no mandatory training.
Yeah, it's crazy, and I've said it from the beginning. We're mandatory reporters of child abuse, mandatory reporters of elder abuse and neglect. We can be held liable if we don't report it. But when it comes to domestic violence, there's no mandatory reporting of that.
That has to change. That's the legislation we got to work on, and we can make videos. The camera's a mighty weapon. So.
And I just saw a post.
Dan's good at it.
I just saw a post in there, Irish Eyes McBride, the paramedic who came to me said, I probably deserved it. And that is absolutely disgusting. And I am ashamed. I'm ashamed for my profession that somebody would say that to you. Yeah. You didn't deserve it. People who are being abused, victims of domestic violence, it is not their fault.
Yeah.
It's not their fault, and it's not for us or anyone else to judge.
Yep. Wow.
Oh my God, I'm not going to sleep tonight after reading that. I am so sorry. I am so sorry that you experienced that. We need to be a better version of ourselves. We have to be our best person out there. And oftentimes, and I saw it with myself in my younger years, being busy on the street, running 14, 15 calls in a shift. You get jaded, you get callous, and sometimes you don't always respond the way you should. But nobody should ever say that to somebody. Nobody should ever place blame on them for a situation that they have no idea what they're going through. That is
that person does not belong in the profession that they're in.
Traumatized her for life. Well, you're always welcome to message me. I know I spoke to Nikki about it. I know they have a lot of resources. Maybe they have people, if you need to talk to anybody or help, I'm sure they can arrange that. But if you would like to work with us, we're going to be making some videos to raise awareness if you're up to it. And I'm more than welcome. If you ever agree to be interviewed with me, I can disguise you. No one would ever know it's you if you don't want anybody to know. But I'd love to hear your story if you're willing to talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm always willing to share. I think that's how we learn.
What's the best way for people to get a hold of you, Dan?
You can you can email me, Dan at 10 Lives Content. That's actually my real email. I'll respond. Or you can DM me on Instagram. My Instagram, I'm always on it. It's at DC3.
DC3. Yeah, sorry.
At DC3 director, but this is like Justin's number one thing. Where you message Justin, he's really good at connecting people. But
but the issue is it's hard I get literally over 1,000 notifications a day, so it's very hard. I mean, you can email me directly. You can get to my email by going to the link in my bio.
I'm going to post Justin's cell phone because he doesn't get his messages on my Instagram today, so everybody can just call him direct.
I will harm you.
All right, I have to go to bed, man. All right, Jim, it was so nice meeting you finally.
Absolutely nice meeting you too.
Sorry under these circumstances, but you guys are doing good stuff.
We're doing our best, certainly doing our best, and we appreciate everybody's help and support.
All right, Justin, I'll talk to you tomorrow. Kick me off. I don't know how to hang out. But
all right, I'm going to end it too. Everyone have a great night. Please give Jim a follow before you jump off if you can. He is at 363. I would love to get him to 400 before he wakes up tomorrow. So please give him a follow. You hear how important this conversation is. Dan, I'll just connect you so you can. There you go. Here,
I'm
bye, Dan.
I'm trying to find Jim on here so I can follow him too.
Oh, all you do is click Jim's name in the little box. Yeah.
There we go. Okay.
And then hit his name.
There you go. 367 now, Jim. There you go.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, guys.
All right, bye, Dan.
All right.
But give him a follow, and let's see where we're at real quick, Jim. Before we go, let's see where the total's at. 369. So we've done pretty good tonight. We've gotten you a few hundred.
Yeah, it's
couple
amazing.
hundred.
I appreciate everybody.
So we'll try to do this during a day one time, but I appreciate you jumping on. I know you have an early day tomorrow, but have a great night. And you have my. I know Nikki put us on a thing, but you already had my number. But if you need anything, let me know.
I appreciate you, man. I really
Always.
do, and everything you do for us.
No, always. I love you guys, and anything that I can do to help. What y'all are doing is amazing, and anything way that I can support, I'm honored to do so.
It's amazing. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Well, have a great night, and I will talk to you soon.
All right, man. Be safe.
Thanks. You too. Bye.
Bye.
The people asking for Dan, I'm gonna jump off too. But before I go, the people asking for Dan's email address, you can go through his Instagram. But if you want, I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but you can go to my website, link in my bio, justinontiktok.com, and email me, and just put in the subject for Dan, and I can forward it on to him if you want me to do that, because I don't know what it is off the top of my head. But I'm going to bed as well because it's 1:30, and I will talk to you guys soon. Have a great night. Thanks for hanging out. And we'll be back with more Diddy talk tomorrow. Remember, he is appealing his bail tomorrow. So we're going to be talking about that as well. And maybe I'll talk about the Tupac thing. So anyways, y'all have a good night. Talk to you guys soon.